Department of Justice is entrusted with the defense of our Constitution. Department leadership should not apply any doctrine of immunity that might block Congress from fully uncovering and addressing the causes of the January 6th attack.
In the United States of America, no one is above the law. This committee is doing its job. The Department of Justice needs to do theirs.
The Department of Justice has a duty to act on this referral and others we have sent. Without enforcement of congressional subpoenas, there is no oversight.
Attorney General Garland, do your job so that we can do ours.
So there you're seeing a mashup of different members of the January 6th commission, sort of on both sides. It's kind of bipartisan if you still consider Liz Cheney to be a Republican. Most Republicans don't. And they're frustrated with the DOJ for not following up on one of their referrals, specifically having to do with Mark Meadows. So it's kind of a nice moment where they're as frustrated with the DOJ as we are, as frustrated with Merrick Garland as we are, but they want to see some movement. And bear in mind that the department did move quickly to criminally charge Steve Bannon back just 4 or 5 months ago. That's just 3 weeks after the House held him in contempt for defying a select committee subpoena. Contempt charges against Bannon, who's slated to face trial in July, so mark that on your calendars. It's gonna be an exciting month. We're a jolt of support for the committee, they say. Now, Bannon, of course, is not interested in any of this. He's trying to defy the subpoena, saying it's invalid, and I'm sure he's got a rigorous legal argument that he's using there. But so far, when it comes to Mark Meadows, who had briefly cooperated with the committee before withdrawing his support, that brief cooperation, by the way, having generated a lot of interesting news when it comes to Ginny Thomas and all that. DOJ seemingly not as interested in actually pushing forward on this. So Farron, I know there's been a big story developing for over a year now. What do you think about the DOJ's interesting approach to who they will charge and who they won't at this point?
I think it's obvious at this point, Merrick Garland, the DOJ, they've got reservations about all of it. And I think it's because they're too afraid to fight. I mean, how long has that Meadows contempt charge been sitting there? What was it, December 14th? I believe was the day the vote was held. So 3.5 months, they've been sitting on this criminal referral, doing absolutely nothing about it. And like you said, they had no problem going after Bannon. Well, guess what? Bannon wasn't a part of the actual administration, right? He's just a dude out there with a podcast right now. I mean, that's who he is. So sure, we can go after him because we're not actually touching the administration. So when it comes to, do we want to get into that? Do we want to wade into these political waters? They're terrified. And if you're terrified, the DOJ is not a place where you should be working. You're going to have to do things that are going to be unpleasant. You're going to have to do things that are going to draw the public's ire. You may have to go after Democrats one day, Merrick Garland. And if you're not willing to do that, put the partisan blinders down and say, bad things happened, it's our job, then get out of the way and let's put somebody there who will. I've been calling since November for the DOJ to appoint a special prosecutor to essentially take over for the January 6th committee. Now, the committee has put themselves in a position, they've given themselves, I believe, a summer deadline, like we're gonna have our report by summer, just in time for the campaign season and all of that. It makes political sense, but legally speaking, we're not gonna be done. We're literally learning new things every day, things that we didn't know last week, and it's always a bombshell. It's not just little bitty tidbit news here or there. It's big, massive things that need to be fully investigated. And this committee, by its own design, by what Congress can do, can't fully get into the legal issues that a special prosecutor or special prosecutors could do. But again, it all goes back to Merrick Garland. He's not willing to do this because he's terrified. And I think it may be time to start pushing Biden like, hey, there's lots of really good, smart prosecutors out there who would love to take that job. Certainly not Alvin Bragg. So maybe we go start looking at them. Hey, what's Letitia James up to after she finishes this civil investigation in New York? There's a good candidate.
For now, let's let her do that job first. But right. Sure, potentially. it really comes down to the timeline that we have available, because the January 6th commission could utterly evaporate in 8 months if the Republicans take over.
Yeah.
All the more reason to get something in now. And honestly, I think it's a pretty good plan, particularly because of how terrified Merrick Garland is. And honestly, the January 6th commission is too. Like here, they're trying to present themselves as kind of the tough guys, saying like, we need to act, you need to get in there. But bear in mind, they're asking him to do something. What are they actually doing? Like, they don't want to force members of the House to testify. Like, it's very easy to point fingers at Merrick Garland and say that he's a coward. That's easily demonstrable. But they're also pretty cowardly. They seem to be trying to map out a path that is just provocative enough and interesting enough that it could potentially have that sort of strategic effect on the election that they clearly want this to have. And I'm sure that if there is stuff that's very shallowly buried, they want to dig it up and reveal it. But they're not willing to go that much further than that. I mean, it's one thing to like give a referral to the DOJ, but what about all the Congress people that were given the tours, and what happened with the panic button, and all these questions that we still have, 15 months later? I'd like to see some bravery from them too on the actual committee.
Oh, absolutely. And it was shocking when they did make that announcement. Yeah, I guess it was last week that, yeah, we're not gonna subpoena any members of Congress. And again, it's because they're afraid. They understand if they do that, the Republicans will immediately weaponize it in their midterm attack ads and say, see, we told you this was a political witch hunt from the start. Now they're subpoenaing Jim Jordan. Now they're subpoenaing Mo Brooks. No,
but
it's not.
Aren't they gonna do that anyway?
They are, and that's the problem that this committee doesn't realize. It's okay, look, it's just like when we can't nominate Bernie Sanders because then they'll call us all socialists. And then you get Biden and we're still all called socialists anyway. So no matter what the committee does, they're going to paint it as this partisan witch hunt. So go all out. Do the things that they're daring you to do so that we can get the answers. This is not about revenge. It's not about trying to make somebody look like a fool. It's about letting the country know who was involved in this attack on the Capitol. And if we don't get all the answers to that, like you said, Republicans, McCarthy, a couple days ago, I think, made it clear this committee's dead if Republicans take over. So if we don't have answers by then, we likely won't get them.
Yeah, and look, there's a lot of things that the Democrats are doing that I'm sure you've talked about at length that are seemingly designed to ensure that Republicans will take over by the end of the year. One thing you could potentially do to help keep control is to reassure the American public that you actually take these threats to democracy seriously. And the January 6th commission, of course, is only one part of that, but seeming to take it seriously would reassure the public. And honestly, like if you're not brave enough to do what you need to do, and if Merrick Garland clearly isn't brave enough to do what he needs to do, then just do what Farron is asking. Get the the prosecutor in there, let them do it. Then it's not you. You're not the one that's asking for these things. It's them. They're the partisan witch doing the hunt in this metaphor. I just think that that's a way safer road to take, but even that, I guess, is too provocative for these utter cowards.
It really is. The special prosecutor avoids all of the problems that we see now and the problems that are foreseen in the next year. If the committee gets killed by Kevin McCarthy, oh well, we've got our special prosecutor. This person's gonna carry on the investigation. Oh, the committee is waiting for Merrick Garland to act on the criminal referrals. A special prosecutor doesn't have to do that. They can do that themselves.
Yes.
So all of the holdups, all of the problems, the potential disbanding of the committee, that gets avoided with this very simple move of saying, okay, this person is our special prosecutor. And I think it goes even beyond just one. I think you have several. You appoint one to investigate the Stop the Steal rally and everyone involved with that. You get another to focus strictly on Donald Trump and the administration's efforts to stall the electoral count, basically stop that from happening. And then of course, the third to actually look at the insurrection itself. Who was involved, who stoked that. So you got 3 special prosecutors, there's your jobs. I've laid it out all for you, Merrick. I don't know what you're waiting on, But if you want to have a phone call with me, I'm always available. I will tell you how to do this. I just don't know who to put in charge of it yet.
Exactly. And look, I agree with what you said earlier that they're gonna say that you're doing it anyway. They're gonna say that it's a partisan witch hunt. So like you're kind of getting the witch hunt for free. You're already gonna be criticized for it. Why not do it? And by the way, that's not what you're doing. Isn't that nice? That like you're gonna get away with it because they would attack you either way, and you're actually doing the right thing because the thing that you're investigating is real and happened. Isn't that novel? Like not spending years and years investigating absolutely trumped up things or whatever Hunter Biden put on his Instagram or whatever. Like you will be doing something that is founded in an honest search for truth, that actually cares about ethics. And by the way, I totally agree that we need answers. Totally. And as you've pointed out, there's been a lot that's been coming out just over the past few months. God only knows what we don't know at this point. But also, let's bear in mind the stakes. This is not like, well, they tried to insurrect, but now they've all gone off to produce movies or something. No, they're prepping to do it again. And if there are no, like, first of all, they're probably gonna try anyway, but if there's no consequences, then they are definitely gonna try to. And they'll have had 4 years to lay the legal groundwork to get more and more people to believe the big lie. We need to be very worried about the next steps of this movement. And Merrick Garland and even the January 6th Commission, they don't seem as if they are worried about the stuff that comes next. They seem to think that, well, this was a rough patch in American political history, but I guess we've moved on. I don't think that we have.
No, and you know who else doesn't think we've moved on from this are the judges that are overseeing the cases of the Capitol rioters themselves. All the way back, starting in August, we started getting reports from these judges saying, first and foremost, the prosecutors are not going hard enough on these people. They're making too many very lenient plea deals. We don't like it. And more importantly, we're seeing in these people behavior that we believe it's going to repeat itself. So when these defendants are going in front of these judges and the judges are listening and the judges are trained to basically be able to read kinds of people like, are you truly remorseful? They don't see that. They see individuals that have in fact been radicalized, and the judges, including some appointed by Trump, have been out there saying, these people deserve more time in jail. This is not, they will do it again. That's why they've actually started putting their probation to go beyond January 6th of 2025. So that if they try another insurrection on January 6th, 2025, they go straight to jail. But when those people show us how worried they are about it, when they start adding into their rulings that, yes, it looks like Donald Trump broke the law, even when that's not what you were deciding a case on.
Yeah.
Those are, giant flags that they're waving, trying to say, folks, pay attention to this. And like you said, the committee's just like, yeah, if we get enough information, maybe that'll be good enough. We'll have a report by summer. We're gonna take some time at the beach, and then we got to run for re-election.
Exactly. Yeah, no, 100%. I'm glad to know about the probation deadlines. Like I think it's very much like a fool me once situation. You get one insurrection, everybody. Okay, we go leaning after one attempt to overthrow democracy. You try to do it again, we're gonna take it kind of serious.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.